But Brandon, we're going to move on into our final topic before we get to our picks for the week. And I did do a little bit of foreshadowing in the last topic. We are now going to talk about the Cleveland Browns. And what we are looking at here is basically, should the Browns move away from DeShone Kizer already? And the reason why I say that is DeShone Kizer in the last game benched for Kevin Hogan. And it looks like Hogan may be the starter this week for the Browns' Week 6 game. And I have a quote from Hugh Jackson, the Wolverine, and he says, and I quote, "My decision is what is best for the team, what is best for our team to put us in position to win. Also, what is best for DeShone. It's not just for the team, but what is best for him, just so that he can feel like, okay, I'm moving further along in this process. And I'm understanding what I need to do to be better. All of that will go into my decision making," end quote. Now, obviously, he's talking about who's going to be the starter for this week. I'll throw it to you, though. Should the Browns be moving on from DeShone Kizer 4 games into the year? 4 or 5 games into the year?
No, not a chance. I think that would be utterly ridiculous. I mean, you went and you drafted this guy because you saw something in him. And I understand that there's, that's why the Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell. They saw something in him. They saw a lot in him because there was plenty of him. But sometimes it doesn't always work out. But this isn't one of those situations. This is a young guy being thrown into a situation with a team that doesn't have a whole lot of weapons. I mean, I think that's pretty safe to say.
They lost one of their better weapons to the Redskins in Terrell Pryor this past offseason.
Yes, and Terrell Pryor, he still hasn't done a whole lot for the Redskins this year.
But
he was certainly a weapon for the Browns. I mean, if they still had Josh Gordon out there, I mean, remember Josh Gordon?
Yeah, I remember Josh Gordon pretty well.
Yeah, so he has many vices, but he is uber talented.
He's a good wide receiver.
And he would have been someone great to have on that team to be able to work with, that the DeShone Kizer could work with, because that would have been a really, I think, dynamic duo right there. But they don't. I mean, they have, or they had, what's his name on there? I'm trying.
You're talking wide receiver.
I'm trying to think of any of their wide receivers' names.
They drafted Corey Coleman. However, he was injured most of last year.
Corey Coleman, I like him a lot, but he's injured this year too. I mean, another broken bone, another broken hand, or something. I mean,
their top 2 receivers this year: Rashad Higgins and Kenny Britt. Those are your top 2 right now.
Thank you, Kenny Britt, who is dropping the football left and right. He is not reliable. It's been a real struggle. And when you have a young guy like that, you're going to need some guys to be able to help you out, somebody to go to with the football. And the Cleveland Browns flat out right now have nobody other than Duke Johnson to throw the football to.
Yeah.
It's not a wonderful situation. So you can't put everything on DeShone Kizer at this point. Has he thrown a lot of interceptions? 3 touchdowns to 9 interceptions? He has. Has he thrown a lot of balls he shouldn't have thrown? He has. Has he thrown a lot of balls at a point where, you are on the verge of scoring, and then he throws the ball when he shouldn't too quickly, doesn't go through all of his reads, or he throws it off the mark, and then it turns into an interception, and they turn the football over? He has. But I think there are some good things with DeShone Kizer. He is a quarterback who is mobile. He's able to use his feet as well. He is just a young kid, and he's got 21 years old, younger than both of us, Ricky. And it's crazy to say. Yeah. But
I know. I think of it every single year when these kids. Remember when Derek, like this side, a little aside, when Derrick Rose was drafted, that was the year, one of the main pro drafts where I was like, wow, he's my age. I could be in the NBA. And now I think, holy shit, he's broken his knees twice and he's almost done with his NBA career. What have I done with my life? That's what I think about now.
When
I think of NFL players getting drafted, like, holy shit, what am I doing with my life? And they're getting drafted.
Going back to DeShone Kizer, I'm right there with you. Going back to DeShone Kizer, though, we do have to remember that he's a young kid playing for the Cleveland Browns. Now,
the 0-5 Cleveland Browns.
The 0-5 Cleveland Browns. But coming into the season, I really thought that Cleveland might be able to surprise some people and actually be semi good. They've been competitive in a couple of their games. Like they probably, let's be honest about it, they probably should have won the game against the Jets this past weekend. DeShone Kizer had a very, very bad interception down near the goal line. DeShone Kizer had a really bad pitch to Isaiah Crowell down near the goal line. Those were 2 times when they could have come away with at least a field goal, and they weren't able to do it. So those are things that are going to be growing pain. Those are growing pains. Those are going to happen. But I think he does show some promise, though. I mean, there's things that he's done that's like, that's good. You scrambled away. You were able to move out of the pocket, and you didn't throw the football. You just ran instead. There are definitely things that are positive with this young kid. But at the same time, like I said, you are going to need some weapons around you to help him out.
Well, and don't forget, they could have beaten Pittsburgh week 1 if Kenny Britt caught the ball. If Kenny Britt caught the ball late, I believe it was late in the fourth quarter because Hugh Jackson basically called Kenny Britt out after the game. He makes that catch. The Browns pretty much could have beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1. Probably should have beaten the Colts. Lost 31-28 in that one. Probably should have beat the New York Jets. And like you look at those 3 games, you're looking from 0-5 to 3-2. They're 3-2. No one's talking about this. And the biggest thing that I think for DeShone Kizer is, yes, he doesn't have any weapons, and I think that is a big problem. But the thing I also think about is what could benching him after 4.5 games do to his psyche? Because you got to think of DeShone Kizer. Didn't have the most confident coach in the confident system in college. Brian Kelly basically, like, there were times in college where we're like, you are screwing with DeShone Kizer's confidence. How Brian Kelly would flip-flop. Here's Malik Zaire. No, here's DeShone Kizer. Up, we're back to Malik Zaire. He screwed with his confidence already, and now you drafted him, named him the starter. Basically, Denny Green, you crowned his ass. You want to crown his ass? Crown his ass. And that's what you did by naming him the starter. Now, if you pull him, what is that going to do to DeShone Kizer's psyche? And I know what fans are thinking. Well, if he doesn't have the psyche to get benched, then get out of town because we don't need you. We need a tough guy at the quarterback position. I know that's what you guys are thinking, Cleveland fans. However, you can't do that to the kid. I mean, I don't want to use the excuse of you're the Cleveland Browns, but guess what? You're the Cleveland Browns. You spent, look at your first round. You spent 2 of your big picks on the defensive side of the ball to beef up.
Which you needed to.
I'm not saying you didn't need to, but to beef up that defensive side of the ball, yes, you got the tight end from Miami and Joku, who you drafted later on in that first round. However, on the depth chart right now, he's the 3rd tight end. So it's like, how much dividends are you getting for that? One question I want to ask, and I want to pose out there, because when I talked to Mark today at the fair me and him were working at, and he was bringing up Stephen A., what Stephen A. was saying about Mitch Trubisky and how with the Bears, after Mitch's first game last night, I guess he was posing the question of, should the Bears have buyer's remorse with Trubisky, and should they be like, well, shit, we should have drafted Deshaun Watson? And Mark's like, no, you can't think about that. Don't bring it up. I'm having that question about the Browns. Because remember, the Browns number 1 could have went Deshaun Watson number 1. Could have got their quarterback right away. With how Deshaun Watson has looked, if you're a Browns fan, should the Browns fans be sitting there going, fuck, we could have had Deshaun Watson. We could have had a guy that at least would have given us promise. Before you answer, I want to give my answer. No, don't think about that, because think about who Deshaun Watson has around him. Will Fuller, DeAndre Hopkins, Lamar Miller. He's got weapons. The Browns don't have weapons. That's why Deshaun Watson's a good quarterback, But take away DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller and Lamar Miller and give him the Browns roster, I don't know if he looks as good as he has this year.
I was going to say the exact same thing that you just said, is that you could take a lot of really good players, put them in the Cleveland Browns offense as it is right now, and there'd be many that couldn't do much with it. There'd be many that couldn't do much with it.
You know who I could say could do something with it? Trubisky. You want to know why I could say that? Because the Bears don't have anything either. They got Jordan Howard. That's about it.
No, the Bears don't.
That wide receiver core is almost as depleted as the Browns wide receiver core. That's why Trubisky might be the only one that could do something with this Browns roster.
That's very true. But I think that now the bigger thing, I know that the topic is DeShone Kizer, but now the bigger topic is, when are the Cleveland Browns going to invest in some fucking offense?
Hopefully this year,
because that's what they need to do. You know, I'm sorry. Yes, it's important to invest in a defense and get them going, but you now have this young guy. You now have what you're hoping is probably your future. You need to find someone for him or anyone else who's going to be playing quarterback for Cleveland. You need to invest in some offensive pieces. You supposedly got better on the offensive line, and then you should be getting some wide receivers. You need about 4. I mean, it's now the New York Giants do too, but it's absolutely unbelievable how little Cleveland has around them. It's almost unbelievable.
Well, and I mean, that hits the nail right on the head. I mean, the one thing I'm looking up right now is I can't remember for the life of me in the mock draft that you and I talked about for the Primetime podcast, kind of the preseason mock draft, which got a little bit of flack, I will say, based on some of the picks, but it was more about the players than where they were landing in that draft. I can't remember for the life of me who I had the Browns go with, but one guy that I think of, and this is obviously draft discussion a little bit because the Browns are 0-5, but right now I'm thinking Browns could be the number 1 pick. If they're even in the top 5, they could even go for a Calvin Ridley. And I had them at 4 going with Saquon Barkley. That's who I had them going with. But they could go with a Calvin Ridley, who I originally had at 10. There's a wide receiver that can do something for this team. Let's say the Browns do end up with a top 5 pick. Do you go with Calvin Ridley, or do you look for somewhere else? Or do you say, we'll look for wide receiver somewhere else? Or do they look for it in free agency, do you think? How do you think the Browns get the weapons for DeShone Kizer or Hogan? Because if Hogan starts, then it's going to be Hogan.
I don't know. I think that you're right in terms of what you're saying of where they could end up draft wise. Who do you go with? Who do you go with? You know, what guy do you want a burner, like a kind of like a Calvin Ridley with what I would look at him as, or what is it? But you have to be able to make the important decision to, okay, we're going offense. We're going offensive heavy. We've got to get a couple of good pieces in this upcoming draft. We've got to do it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Do you remember back in 2007, 2008-ish, the Cleveland Browns, they had Derek Anderson as their starting quarterback. They had Braylon Edwards. They had Kellen Winslow. I forget who their running back was at the time. But they actually, you put that team out there right now, I think fans would rather have them back.
Rather have them
I think fans would like to have them back.
I don't think that Browns
I don't know. You may tell me to go F myself.
Well,
but
I'm trying to think of the Browns because 07-08 was junior year, for me, junior year, senior year of high school. They had Jamal Lewis.
Jamal Lewis, back. Yes.
Jamal Lewis in 07 and 08. It was Jamal Lewis both years. I mean, that's, looking back, I mean, those aren't, Jamal Lewis was a 1,000-yard rusher. He's a 1,000-yard rusher, and I don't think Crowell will be. How did that team do?
And in 2007, they were 10-6.
Missed the playoffs at 10-6.
2008, 4-12. And then the best season the Browns have had is 20 since 2007 at 10-6. The best season they've had is 2014 at 7-9.
Yeah.
And then 3-13 in 15, 1-15 in 16.
Man, that 2014, that was the Brian Hoyer year. I remember that year. I remember, no, that was a later year because that Buffalo Bill game was on Thursday night. But yeah, that 2014 year, that was the Brian Hoyer year. But with the Browns, I totally agree with you. You need to get a weapon. You need to get somebody for DeShone Kizer to go to. And the one thing you got to think of with the draft that I forgot to mention, they're going to have an early on pick, but they're also going to have, in our mock draft, it ended up being 18, they're going to have 2 first rounders.
Yeah.
Because they have, I can't remember which team it is, they have somebody's first. I think it's Houston. It's Houston because that's right. Houston traded up to get DeShone, and they traded with the Browns for theirs, and they got this pick from the Houston Texans. So they're going to have the Texans' first-round pick as well. You can go with a wide receiver because who do I have going right after them at 18? Christian Kirk, wide receiver from Texas A&M at the time. So, I mean, there are guys they can go with. It's just can they get them and will they get those weapons? But the last thing I just want to throw out there to kind of end the segment on a nice, crisp, clear, definitive answer of this week, if you are Hugh Jackson.
You always want to say Hugh Jackman.
I am, because me and Mark call Hugh Jackson the Wolverine. We call him the Wolverine, so I want to say Hugh Jackman. I don't know why. Well, because it's Hugh Jackson. It's kind of like Hugh Jackman, so we just call him the Wolverine.
Yeah, sure.
It's something that we just started saying. It's kind of stuck.
That's cute.
Kind of like rock the cock-a-doodle-doo. It just sticks. But the thing I want to ask you, I am putting you in the shoes of Hugh Jackson. Congratulations. Well, congratulations or bad news.
Tell me congratulations. He makes some good money to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
You're the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Who you going with this weekend as your starting quarterback? DeShone Kizer or Hogan?
Who we playing? Houston? You know what? I'm going to go Kizer. I'm going to go Kizer because you're 0-5. You're 0-5, and I'm not saying that it's a lost season. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that.
On the road too, so you're in Houston.
I know. I don't want to say that, but you know what? There also isn't anything necessarily bad with going with the young guy, giving him a season of, okay, we're going to put you out there. We're going to get you a lot of really, really good experience. You're going to have some bumps. There's going to be a lot. You're going to take a lot on the chin. But we're going to get you some really good experience, and then we're going to get you some players next year. I think you just go Kizer. I do. I mean,
I'm in agreement.
What are you having to lose? What are you having to lose? Another losing season? I mean, it's just like whatever. This is the guy that you went and you got. This is the guy that you want. Put him out there. Give him the opportunity to try and impress you, make some plays, show you what he's got too. That's what I would go with. That's who I would go with. But
yeah,
go ahead.
I'm on the same boat. Kizer, give him the whole season. It's a lost season to me only because I just looked at FPI for the Browns. Less than 1% to win the division, less than 1% to make the playoffs, less than 1% to win the Super Bowl. Just let Kizer have the season.
I would completely agree.
But go ahead with what you were going to ask.
I wanted to say the Cleveland Browns have not made the playoffs since 2002. And they have had, again, since 2007.
Jeez, I was 12 years old the last time they made the playoffs.
They have had a losing record since 2008. Something has got to change with this Browns team. It's not just the quarterback. It's not just the quarterback that you have to look at with them anymore. You have to put some winning weapons around you. When you had Josh Gordon, you had a weapon. You had something there. When you had Gary Barnidge, you had a weapon. You've got, David Njoku now, and I think that he'll be good. He's already shown some good things. But you cannot continue to go with Kenny Britt. He ain't the answer. He is not the answer, and the rest of those guys on that receiving core, outside of Corey Coleman, are not the answer. And it's time, Cleveland, to get your act together. Get the guy in there, general manager, who's going to be able to have some balls to make the good moves.
Remember, money
and
ball.
go and go and make it happen. Because right now, the city of Cleveland, one day LeBron James is going to leave and he's not going to be there anymore. And then what do you have? Well, the Indians, but
remember, Cleveland is now a Moneyball team now. They believe in the Moneyball. That's what they're going with. Baseball is now coming over to the NFL. It's all about Moneyball with the Cleveland Browns. Stash them draft picks. Go with, we're going to bring in the 76ers also. We're going to have Moneyball and trust the process in Cleveland. That's what we're going to have. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know down below. Who would you rather start this weekend? What do you think of the maybe benching of DeShone Kizer after 4.5 games? What do you think of the Cleveland Browns and their roster with DeShone Kizer? Let us know what you guys think about anything we talked about down below in the comment section.